How do you do? Namaste. This is Richard Rudis. I am a Gong Bath or sacred sound vibrational practitioner. I have studied. I think that due to my early interest in Buddhism and the mechanism of sacred sound that is used within that tradition, particularly Tibetan Buddhism. And I think because of that, I have been one of the pioneers, if you will, of bringing sacred sound via the instruments of Buddhist tradition, bowls, gantas, tingshas, and ultimately the very specifically tuned gongs from the Paiste Corporation. I prefer them over others, not to judge others necessarily. Each one has a gift, absolutely. But a tune gong in general is something that can be structured, controlled, focused in such a way as to bring a healing quality to sacred sound in a more, as I say, structured way, rather than sort of a shotgun approach, which so many people seem to like. The so I'm and back to myself. I have a degree in engineering and degree in art, and have a very deep connection to Tibetan Buddhism. About 30 years of studying Vajrayana Buddhism, and specifically how sound can be structured in a way to create an awakening within us. Sound can be used physically, mentally, and of course spiritually in a healing sort of modality. But Buddhism, and especially their approach to using sound, very practical, of course, that they work within the physical body, but it is more to a means to an end of awakening us to a greater truth, a greater understanding, a greater knowing of self, a diamond self, if you will, the aspect of ourselves that moves from one consciousness to another, one container to another. So I took refuge with the Buddha through the Karmapa back in '96. My Tibetan name is Sonam, or actually the full name is Karma Sonam Dorje, which means meritorious thunderbolt, very appropriate for the Vajrayana school, and something I'm trying to live up to via sacred sound healing. I say healing with a little hesitation, because healing really is a cooperative aspect. One needs to want to reach a level of understanding of self to really effectuate a deep, abiding healing. And also healing also gives us an indication or suggests that there is something amiss. And again, in Vajrayana Buddhism, nothing is amiss. This is all created in this journey through consciousness has been created or is being created to awaken us. So back to the sound. Anyway, that's me. I'm visible on Facebook, and I have a newsletter. I do tours. I'm about to leave on tour in Colorado tomorrow, actually. And then in Chicago, and I teach as well as online. I do monthly full moon experiences via the Zoom network, which is interesting because even removed from the environment of which the sound is being created, where we experience the vibrations more directly, which of course is the best way of experiencing it. We have even via the limitations of the electronics of which we're pushing the sound through, has a very healing effect. And I can say that based on over a year of experiences using the network within an environment of controlled sound is at least at this end, has produced a great rewarding experience for most people. So that is some of the things I also teach in Europe quite a bit. So the gong I'm using today, and it's my preferred gong actually, a 38-inch Heisty earth gong that has been tuned to the vibrational signature of the Earth as it travels in its yearly orbit around the sun. If you go to Hans Christo's work, I think it's called Harmonics or Cosmic Harmonics or something of that nature. I can't remember the exact name. There's a lot of books out there, and there is a formulaic process of taking the magnetic vibrations of the various planets, sun and the moon, and like within our solar system, and even some asteroids, to create or to realize the vibrational signature. Of course, everything is vibration, and sound, of course, or music is an expression of that. So once you have determined a number, which is the reflective statement or vibrational statement of the Earth as it moves around the sun, then you can take that number, in this case 136.1, create a foundational or a fundamental within the instrument. And I'm not suggesting I really understand the process of doing that. They're very proprietary about it, and it's tuning such an instrument must be a very taxing and very exacting experience. That's specifically why I like Paiste so much, because everyone who buys a gong from Paiste will find the fundamental right on, not a proximity of, but certainly the foundational voice of the instrument is precisely tuned. So this is, as I say, the Earth gong in its orbit. 136.1 hertz is C sharp in the Eastern tuning of instruments. And why I say that is, and why I was so fundamentally drawn to this instrument, is because the 136.1 hertz is the identifiable frequency, at least in the Vedic tradition, of Om. So you take the sacred instruments of India, like the sitar, that have resonant strings underneath the ones that are actually plucked, and you find that the high and the low of those strings is tuned to C sharp, because it is representative, or it is the voice of creation, the voice of Om. The voice in more physical terms would be the event horizon between energy and matter. Realizing that everything in life is energy. Everything within the phenomenal experience is energy, or expressions of energy. So by playing this instrument, I am taking the instrument through the spectrum of Om frequencies, in the sense that the fundamental is set there, and then octaves are built upon that. You really don't need to go into the fundamentals of that unless you're really interested, and then you can certainly email me and we can discuss it. But needless to say that the foundation is the Om frequency, and then the expressions of sounds, layers of opportunity for us as practitioners and as receivers, are built upon that frequency, upon that overall frequency. And the human ear can hear, I think it's 21 or 26 different octaves on the best ear day of our lives. This instrument goes beyond that. We've been able to track it in our own labs to 31 different octaves. The manufacturer refers to 33. So that is to say that within the realm of the octaves that we can hear and we're feeling within our conscious mind, there are octaves that are below that threshold and above that threshold, sort of a whole spectrum of light, whole spectrum of energy that we're experiencing on a level that might be beyond our senses, but have a fundamental impact within the body, the mind, and the spirit. So vibrational healing, and as such, especially within the envelope that we refer to as sacred sound, is draws a lot of potential. It has a lot of opportunity for us to set intentions, for instance, as far as influencing our own life path, or and that can obviously be very specific healing. When I do a gong bath, um, is something I controversially trademarked in the United States back in I think 2002 or something like that, because I found that it was a I thought at the time was a uh, unique. I mean, I came up with it along with one of my sponsors, and we thought, okay, this was going to be a unique way, or a short way of explaining what to experience being bathed in sound, essentially, that was being created from a specific instrument. And then I found that people came back to me and said they had experienced a gong bath, but that there was a certain residue that was unpleasant. And inevitably, I would find out it was something that I had not presented, but that somebody else had presented under the same name. So at that point, I thought, well, I like to separate my work from everyone else's. And again, not to judge, because we're all on our own journey. And perhaps the person who had that headache or that queasy feeling after the experience was truly an opportunity for healing. So I, not knowing all the factors in life, obviously, I accept what it is, but I did want to separate my own work out from others who were referring to their work by the same name. So I trademarked it. Not that I make a big deal out of it, but it is. It was the whole intention behind it was just to say, I should have said Gong Bath by Richard Rudis or Sonam Dorje, something of that nature. But anyway, that's where it stands. And my approach is very clear. I have, for those of you who play gongs, I have found that there is the nature of the gong that is very elemental. For instance, in this grouping here and along the edges, the essence of the sound is very grounding, very earthy, focus, center. Those type of keywords are involved. As you move from the edges to this area, this brown area between the edge and this little highlighted area is much more watery, more fluid, more flexible. And I'm going to do a little demonstration once we set the sounds situation a little bit differently for the gong, not for my voice, then I'm sure you'll be able to ascertain that pretty easily. From the earth to water, this little edge here is more etheric or air. This grand area here is fire. So when you hear that expression and can identify it, then you can start to use it. So what happens when you add air and fire? Obviously, elementally, we know, and the greater force of heat, greater force of illumination. What happens when you add water to fire? What happens when you add air to water or earth to any of these? So those sort of combinations are a fundamental way of approaching the instrument. And then when you take that quality, that elemental quality, and apply it through aspects of sacred geometry, particularly geometry that is useful in activating energy points within the body, chakra points, or the nature of the chakra points. then you really have an entryway, a threshold of which to move from yourself and your efforts, your energy, through the envelope or the threshold of sacred sound, and direct it directly and very intimately into or towards a participant who is there to experience the instrument. Of course, you are too at the same time, but um, you have a contractual agreement essentially with the individuals that are there, and it always should be based in what the Buddhist phrase for the benefit of all beings. So to that end, you find that it does shifts environmentally. It shifts a neighborhood. It will shift an individual. Will shift you. Will shift multiple people, and essentially fills the space of which it is found. Um, Oftentimes, I'm called in to alter a energetic statement of a business, of a corporation, of a group of individuals who have a particular task, uh, apart from the generality of an actual gong bath where people just join with me into a gathering of a very specific course of awakening. So all of this and more, there is a part of a book that I've been working on now for the last 5 years. Much to my chagrin, it's not. I love writing, and I love sharing, but It takes me a while to do that. So the book is named "The Art of Gong," and much of this in my personal experiences um, over the last 30 some odd years with the Gong and with participants is part of that book, as well as my personal journey. What brought me to Buddhism? What brought me to sacred sound? For my personal healing, and ultimately for the healing of the overall societal consciousness or shared consciousness. So, with that all that said, I have 40 minutes, and I've gone through 20 so far. And I would be happy, as I said, you can email me at my last name, RUDIS, at Buddhist Artifacts, Buddhist, obviously, artifacts with an S.com. And ask me specific questions. I'm very open, very accessible to that, and I'm very willing to. So at this point, we're going to pause for a moment, make a couple sound shifts, and then I'm going to introduce you to some complementary instruments and obviously the gong. So thank you for now, and we're going to make the shift. So I'm back, and hopefully the sound is now keyed in for the instruments. So as I said, there's complementary instruments, and in Buddhist tradition, which is my focus, obviously, I focus on those, and not to say that there aren't other drone instruments from other traditions that work equally as well and certainly as powerful. It's just my narrow scope of understanding is really focused within that Buddhist tradition, or specifically Tibetan Buddhist tradition, or the Vajrayana school. These are tingshas, and tingshas within the tradition are usually used in the beginning and oftentimes found at the end of a ceremony or a tradition, because their signature, their vibrational signature, is that of awakening. So if you imagine yourself asleep, and this is not so much an alarm clock as a gentle jostling to awaken the energies to be more receptive to the frequencies that are about to follow. So what I'll do is just strike these on a very gently. So in the tradition itself, it also protects the space, creates an envelope of reception that is uninterrupted by outside forces or detrimental forces. And in more detail, it also invites beings from other realms of consciousness within phenomenal space. I won't go into the Buddhist tradition, but those we all understand energies, and that level, they have different frequencies, obviously, and those are invited into the teaching. So it's sort of an announcement. Something important is about to happen, and you're all invited in if you're here to support this experience, if you're here to support yourself, obviously. So, and that's always oftentimes found in the beginning, and in the end, sort of a closure or making an envelope of the experience. And then there's a ganta, which I don't have here, but the ganta is more of it looks like a bell, and it has a consort of a dorje or a vajra. That's more of a feminine expression. The ganta is something that expresses, that creates a housing, a temple of transcendent wisdom. And it's a very motivating, the sound is very motivating. So one is awakened, Tingsha's awakened, gantas get you on the move, gets that energy moving. And its consort is symbolic. It's a symbol of the masculine energy. And in Buddhist terms, the masculine is compassion, the feminine is wisdom. And so when those two expressions are brought together, one needs to cultivate a masculine, transcendent compassion expression to be not so much worthy, because we're all worthy, but it's so much more of a deeper understanding of what reality is, and our part in it, to enter the feminine transcendent wisdom, of which then will bring us to ultimately to realizations of enlightenment. And then the bowls themselves. This is I'm an advocate of the older bowls. This is a gem body, and I'm not going to go through the various types, but needless to say that this is more, their energy has more of a balancing aspect to it. If you go to a school that I'm involved with here in Encinitas called the Tibetan Sound Healing School, Dion Mandel, I believe she's going to be on the Shift Network and do her presentation as well, is a brilliant sound healer and teacher that I'm supportive of in the school, and she will go in great more detail for those of you who are interested in that sort of expression of sacred sound. So all of those aspects can be integrated into this pluralistic, multiple octave expression. So I think the best way of understanding this is to use the example of a chakra. Now, a chakra, when expressed properly, is a energy that comes from us and then out. It's sort of an expression of joy, expression of happiness, expression of vitality. If it's expressed as in a more limited fashion, which in my mind is what the pronunciation chakra is all about, then it has more of a sort of a focal surgical aspect to it. So, you can experience this yourself by expressing the word chakra, and see how the energy enters your body and where it goes, or say it in a more Sanskrit pronunciation, the way it's should be properly expressed, which is chakra. It kind of bubbles up out of you and out. There's an entirely different expression of energy. And if you take that and say, okay, well, I'm going to work with say the root or the heart. The heart is that wonderful transitional chakra within our system between the lower, more physical, phenomenal at base, and the more transcendent base energies within the system. And think of them as a whole, and take that one aspect of the whole, the heart chakra, and realize that that is not, it does have a frequency, it does have a color, obviously colors are frequencies, it does have a philosophical or aspect of understanding, in that it's an expression of within the Buddhist tradition. Again, it's the Buddha energy, ultimate compassion, non-judgmental, more of encompassing and embracing, very feminine. The sacred geometry to it is very, very specific, very easy to work with. A five-pointed star. It is, which is the union, representation of the feminine and the masculine energies, which is really where all the magic happens. When you look at the statues and you find them crossed across the heart, that is the masculine is the expression. We are expressed that through our right side, and our feminine through our left. And as they cross over the heart, then the union of that energy, which is potent in so many different ways, is fully expressed. But the chakra itself is an expression. It's like a fractal experience of Nindra's tower, for those of you that are study such things, where each facet of the jewels are expressing or reflective of all the other facets of all the other jewels. And when we're working with the heart chakra, for instance, we're working with the root chakra of the heart, or the crown chakra of the heart, and all the other multiple energy points, depending on how deep you want to define the separation. Essentially, the whole is expressing itself through the designated energies of the heart chakra. And that's what the gong is all about. It's not it's not necessarily it is pluralistic, but it's not a shotgun approach where one throws the energy out there, and wherever it hits, and whatever it does, it does. It can be much more controlled, much more structured, not necessarily directed fully through the practitioner, although the practitioner has a big role in the overall experience. It really is more of a dance, where sometimes the instrument, once you've established a relationship with it, will lead, and sometimes you will, and sometimes it's a shared experience. But essentially, we're making vibrational structures that are designed to alter consciousness, to awaken the mind, body, spirit, to come to realizations that are both physical within and shared within a shared consciousness, and universal, absolutely universal. So, with all that said, and there's much to be said, but with all that out there in a very abbreviated form, I'll just express myself through the instrument. You'll see that apart from the multiple mallets that I use, which are about 65 in number, because each one brings out a different expression of sound, I also use my own chi, which is impressive to see, but it's really sort of a hat trick in that anyone can do it. It's not specific. It just takes a little bit of training. That's all. As a mallet in and of itself, and it's a way of reconnecting your energies to the instrument, and then outward, obviously. once the instrument is warmed, physically the molecules become more active, then it's easier to express yourself through the mallet of qi. In this case, I'll project it through my feminine side. Obviously, I'm using the grounding aspect, the more earth quality. Let's use the same mallet in the water and see if you can hear the difference. Same cadence, impact, back to ground, and water. Let's go to air or ether. And then finally to fire. So I think you can hear the differences there. Hopefully you can. Obviously we're limited by this electronic system, but if you were here, obviously you would. The different mallets, just to give you a different feel for them. This is a much softer, lighter weight. Impact is, or the connection is just softer. For those of you that are interested in more, there's other techniques such as more friction mallet, like something like this. Use the geometry of, literally the geometry of infinity. And then you can also expand that, more of a flower of life. There's various techniques using the same mallet, but I don't have the time to go into that, obviously, but it's a smaller friction mallet. Larger one. And yet another large one. Larger. And for instance, I have several friction mallets, many different friction mallets, obviously, but these are some of the principal ones. They all look the same, but this one being stiffer and a shorter shaft brings out more of a whale or aquatic feeling to it. This one. And then finally. And once you become accustomed to the instrumentation or the mallets, then you'll be able to obviously choose which expression you want to work with. I'll work with a larger mallet at this point, which will bring out the lower qualities of the instrument, but within the heart chakra and within the geometry of the chakras. So, as you might already know, it's three-pointed star with the apex up, triangle, and then with the same triangle, but this time with the apex down is slightly shifted so that the center creates yet another sacred geometry. It's just a direct strike. You can modify that, obviously. Or you can bring it through time-space by modulating the instrument itself. Dimensionally, which is important in that we live in a three-dimensional, allowing for time, four-dimensional environment. This way, the strikes, the vibrations, the instrument itself moves through variables of time-space, creating more of a dimensional experience. Obviously, we're dimensional beings. As we use the friction mallet, for instance, through the geometry, the sacred geometry, which is found in everything, in all of creation, throughout the universe. It's sort of a fingerprint of creation. Once we continue to use the geometry, the allowing the instrument to manifest itself within through the various octaves, bringing our own energy. Attention to detail, like this, our right side, as I said before, is our more masculine. It's a projective energy. The feminine is our right side, and the union of the two. The right side is more receptive. So being aware of which hand you're expressing or using, which side of your energetic body you're using to express these. Are all different facets of the experience. There's also an arc of experience where the first 10 to 15 minutes are used for brain entrainment, and then we move through a more fluidic healing experience, bringing back full circle back to the closing experience, much like a teaching, a Buddhist teaching. So that's it. That's my presentation in a very encapsulated way. Hopefully, it's not too too fast, or it makes sense. Hopefully, it makes sense. But yeah, as I say, I invite you again to experience to experience me more through either the heart or the full moon experiences online, or if you're in Colorado or Chicago or in France, southern France, you can experience me firsthand. Certainly, I'm open to questions or concerns. Again, and I'd like to plug Dion Mandel's presentation on shift, because that's a way of coupling these sacred sound experiences into more of a spectrum sort of experience. That's it. So thank you, Shift, for the opportunity once again to express this work and my part in it. And I wish you all good health and the benefit of honoring this in service to others, the qualities of that. And namaste to all of you. And thank you once again. Bye.